Utah hosts a really important migration flyway along it, and Great Salt Lake provides a home for thousands of other shorebirds. So we're looking to understand and increase our understanding of those birds and understand where they're flying to, where they're spending their time, so that we can better protect and conserve the habitats that they live in. Motus is the tagging of small organisms, including birds, bats, insects, with special radio transmitters. And then those transmitters can be picked up by any of our stations all around the state or anywhere around the globe. This is a real game changer in our ability to be able to understand this part of wildlife and be able to better protect these organisms.
There's limitations on how big of a transmitter certain smaller species of birds can carry. And so technologies like GPS trackers that have big batteries that last a really long time and send a lot of data and have very precise locations with them are just too heavy for a lot of bird species to carry. So Motus is a way to miniaturize a transmitter. It doesn't carry a GPS with it, it doesn't have a precise location, but it has an identifier. That tag can then say, here I am, this is who I am, and it's just always sending out a little beep. We can track those tags on those birds across big distances through a network of stationary receivers. So each receiver is going to be tuned to the same frequency. They're all going to be plugged into a computer board that can decode that identifier, and then we can track movements over big spaces, over big amounts of time, seasonal migrations, daily movement patterns. But it's all based off of this network of receivers to pick up these tags as they move. A lot of shorebirds are being tracked this way, a lot of songbirds, particularly because they're the smaller birds that can't carry a larger, heavier transmitter. Here in Utah, we've focused a lot of our work right now on pelicans, which pelicans are obviously a very big bird. They can carry a large transmitter, but we're trying to use this technology on baby pelicans. So it's a small, lightweight transmitter we can attach to a young bird that's not going to impede its growth, that's not going to get in the way of it learning how to fly. Still building out the network of receivers, so we haven't yet actually deployed any tags on pelicans yet. But some of the species that the Great Salt Lake is very important for are like Wilson's phalaropes or eared grebes, western sandpipers, all sorts of other birds, snowy plovers. Those have all been in discussions about, now that we are getting this network built, these are species that we could start using it with to track.
It's really important that we understand where these birds are moving in between. We know that while birds are migrating, they have stopover sites, and sometimes, sadly, these stopover sites end up being a victim of development or other industry, and we want to make sure that we can protect those sites so that we can conserve those species for decades to come.
Motus really only works when you have wide stretching collaborations, because birds migrate really far and they don't care about city boundaries, state boundaries, even national boundaries. So a station in Canada needs to be able to connect to a station in Nicaragua, and in between sits Utah. Tracy Aviary has been like a major partnership in this project. In fact, I've been trying to get these stations built for a couple of years, but it wasn't until Tracy Aviary actually hired and funded a Motus ecologist position to help us that we were able to start really making progress on getting these stations built.
Tracy Aviary saw that this was a really up-and-coming technology in wildlife studies and research, and so they wanted to be able to jump in and be a part of that. So they started the Utah Motus Working Group. Since then, they have been trying to help select location sites, figure out the best places to set up Motus stations so that we're getting the best data. And then they also hired me on. I have experience building Motus stations, so I was able to buy the equipment and get all these stations set up, and that's currently what we're doing right now. And hopefully, by the end of October, we will have as many as 25 stations up in Utah.
Talking more about the tower itself, it's got these Yagi directional antennas on it. So it's not just a single antenna that kind of is picking up anything, any direction, but it's actually pointing out and saying if a bird is on the water in that direction versus that direction, So the station can say which antenna picks it up, not just that it was here at Farmington Bay. So it helps us narrow down a little bit more on where exactly these birds are and which parts of an area they might be using. And then the more stations we get put up, if we actually had 2 stations close enough with antennas sort of pointing towards each other, we can even triangulate more precisely where that bird might have been. The Eccles Wildlife Education Center is part of Farmington Bay Wildlife Management Area. So not only is it a very important migratory stopover along the shore of the Great Salt Lake, but it's also a useful education outreach center where people can come and learn more about the Great Salt Lake, learn more about the migrating birds that come through the Great Salt Lake, and not just the migrating ones, but the ones that breed here.
We hope the public can get a better, more interactive view of how birds are traveling around. Since the Motus website is open to anyone, you can actually look at maps of where different birds are traveling at any given time. So we hope that we can better engage the public with the birds that are traveling through their neighborhoods and make them understand why bird conservation is so important.